The Buddha taught that the ordinary mind is inherently pure. But because it is obscured by delusions, it drifts endlessly through the cycle of birth and death. In ancient times, Bodhidharma traveled from India to the East with only a single message: to point directly to the human heart so that one might realize their true nature. This principle has remained a guiding light for spiritual practice for thousands of years. Yet it is often ignored by people who are habitually seeking salvation from the outside world. Buddhist scriptures pass down a story about a man of the Kshatriya caste who traveled every road in search of an enlightened being. He walked past countless monasteries and questioned every monk he met, believing that an awakened one must possess a magnificent form with a radiant, tangible halo that he could touch and worship. He entered a large temple and saw a great number of monks practicing. He asked about the Buddha's whereabouts, but everyone avoided a direct answer, saying that the Buddha has no fixed form. Finally, an old monk approached him, pointed a finger directly at the man's chest, and said that the Buddha does not reside on high altars or within the pages of scriptures, but dwells right within his own heart. The old monk told the man to sit down and reflect on his own mind, for wherever greed, anger, and ignorance are absent, enlightenment is present. As he grew still, the man suddenly felt all his exhaustion vanish. Later, when he actually met the Buddha, the Blessed One simply smiled and confirmed that the man had seen him long ago, for the Buddha had always been within him. Yet he had forgotten this to chase after illusory shadows. The journey of that man is a mirror reflecting humanity today. Many people exhaust their wealth and energy traveling from one Dharma center to another, hoping to find a famous teacher or a special retreat that can grant them peace. They mistakenly believe that purity lies in the quiet spaces of mountains and forests, or within the majesty of ceremonial robes. If one does not know how to turn their gaze inward to observe the mind, moving from one temple to another is merely a change of external scenery. No matter how learned a teacher may be, they can only act as a guide. They cannot walk the path for you. No matter how ancient or sacred a temple is, it is only a temporary shelter. It cannot be a permanent refuge for your soul against the storms of life. What you truly need to face are the chaotic thoughts and the emotions of love, hate, joy, and anger operating within. You practice to resolve the attachments of the heart, not to collect more superficial spiritual experiences to satisfy the ego. The truth of this inherently pure mind was brilliantly demonstrated through the life of the sixth patriarch, Huineng. In the beginning, he was only a poor woodcutter who was illiterate and had never participated in any formal ordination ceremony. The turning point came when he happened to overhear a verse from the Diamond Sutra, and his mind instantly became enlightened. Later, when he went to study at a monastery, he was only assigned the task of hulling rice in a dirty kitchen. When the fifth patriarch asked his disciples to present their understanding of the Dharma to inherit the robe and bowl. A verse appeared on a wall, claiming that the mind is like a bright mirror that must be wiped daily so that no dust can cling to it. When Huineng heard this verse, he asked someone to write another verse in response. Huineng's point was that the source of the mind inherently has no form, and its nature is always clear and empty. So where could dust possibly land? From the beginning, the mind contains not a single thing. So the laborious task of cleaning it or searching for purity is a redundant and misguided effort. Huineng's profound insight completely overturned the attachment to conventional forms of practice. When you understand that your mind is inherently unborn, undying, and unstained by external circumstances, you will stop seeking liberation through external conditions. You do not need a massive temple or profound scriptures to validate your practice. You only need to maintain mindfulness to recognize every thought as it arises, without chasing after it. This is the essence of the principle of non-abiding, which means not clinging to anything. When you do not allow the mind to become attached to any object, be it fame or suffering, your pure nature naturally reveals itself. If you consider building a grand temple as the ultimate goal, you fall into the trap of attachment. You use bricks and tiles to decorate the external space, but you leave your own mind a wasteland filled with jealousy and calculation. Spiritual practice does not lie in how many scriptures you have memorized or who has certified you. It lies in the ability to self-recognize and master yourself. The sickness of clinging to external forms is a deep-rooted human malady. There was once a very wealthy lay disciple who spent most of his fortune building temples and making offerings to countless monks. Yet his heart was always full of anxiety and sorrow. He sought out a Zen master, wondering why his mind was not at peace, despite his many meritorious deeds. The Zen master did not explain with words, but handed him an alms bowl and told him to go to the market and beg from house to house until the bowl was full before returning. The layman followed the order, begging from morning until night, but only received a few scattered grains of rice. He returned in total exhaustion and disappointment. At that moment, the master calmly said that the bowl would never be full, because the man was only waiting for others to put things into it. The master pointed out that if the layman knew how to fill his own bowl with a pure and detached mind, then even a single simple grain of rice would be enough to satisfy him for a lifetime. That teaching woke the layman from a long dream. For years, he had used money to trade for external merit, but had forgotten to create peace from within. He brought his arrogant ego and his desire for rewards into every good deed he performed. As long as the mind is full of greed and expectation, the temple he worked so hard to build is merely a prison shackling his soul. Spiritual practice is not a commercial transaction where you give up material goods to receive peace. you do good deeds not to make a name for yourself, but to let go of selfishness. If you maintain a pure mind without craving, then living in a dilapidated thatched hut is no different from reigning in the joyful Pure Land. In total contrast to the wealthy layman is the image of a thin, frail, old beggar woman in another story. She had no treasures, nor did she understand deep philosophies, but when she met the Buddha, she scraped together the last bit of leftover rice in her cracked bowl to offer to him with all her reverence, joyfully accepted it, and told her that he does not reside in magnificent stupas, but right within her sincere and pure heart. The old woman had never practiced meditation or sat in stillness for a single hour, but the moment she cast aside all selfishness to offer her entire heart, she reached the deepest state of spiritual practice. These two stories involve two opposite faiths, yet they point to the same truth. The mind is the factor that determines all outcomes. A person with money but an unsettled mind will only cause more affliction in everything they do. A poor person with a mind of renunciation will radiate the flavor of the way in every action. You do not need anyone to walk this path for you, and there is no place more sacred than your own mind. A true temple is not built of wood and stone. It is erected from your own sincerity and mindfulness. When you realize this, you will stop blaming your circumstances and stop leaning on those around you. When applying this philosophy to modern life, where people are constantly swept up in the whirlwind of work and survival anxieties, it opens up a very practical path. If you wait until you are free to seek out a meditation center, you will likely spend your whole life in mental struggle. Zen Master Baijiang Huaihai pointed out a wonderful way to practice through the motto, "A day without work is a day without eating." Even in his frail old age, he still carried water, chopped wood, and swept the temple courtyard every day. When his disciples wanted to do the work for him so he could rest, he firmly refused. To him, manual labor was not an obstacle to practice. It was meditation itself. Every strike of the axe or every step while carrying water contained total mindfulness. He did not need to find a silent realm to practice, for his mind rested right within that arduous work. Meditation in daily life means bringing deep awareness into every present moment. The practice is simple and direct. When you sit at a computer typing emails, be aware of your fingers touching the keyboard and keep your mind from projecting into tomorrow's troubles. When you cook dinner for your family, let your mind merge with the sizzling sound of the food, instead of dwelling on the angry words of a colleague from the morning. Being fully aware of what you are doing is how you bring the temple into your kitchen. If you fall into a heated argument, taking a deep breath and choosing to silently observe the rising anger rather than releasing hurtful words is spiritual practice. Practice is not hiding from the noise of the world, but standing in the midst of conflict with an unagitated heart. You face criticism without resentment, and you receive praise without pride. Some believe that retreating to deep forests or high mountains makes it easier to purify the soul. However, if you flee to the mountains while still carrying a mind full of calculation and selfishness, you are only changing the scenery, not your nature. Your habits of greed and anger are merely dormant because there is no one to provoke them. They have not disappeared. The moment you return to daily life and encounter adversity, those seeds will immediately erupt more violently than before. Therefore, your daily work is your true place of practice. The people you meet and the challenges you face are perfect tests to measure the stability of your mind. Do not continue to turn spiritual practice into a distant ritual or a burden to be completed. You do not need any additional external conditions to begin the journey back to yourself. All the materials to reach stillness are available within you at this very moment. When you are walking, know that you are walking. When you are angry, simply recognize that anger without identifying yourself with it. This is how you clean the mirror of the mind with mindfulness, without needing any other means. Once you understand and live fully with this truth, all dependence on the external world will naturally fall away. Temples may be destroyed by time, and great teachers will eventually leave this world. But your inherently pure mind will never fade or decay. If all liberation originates from a mind that does not cling, then ask yourself, at this very moment, are you ready to stop all external searching, to courageously face yourself?